So yesterday, I walked Pepper with the normal 3 with my trio, and we did that again today. And I could not figure out last night why my butt was so sore when I was at home. And it's like, I've been way after the fact. It's like, what the hell did I do? I felt like I got a solid butt workout in yesterday. And I figured it out today. Yesterday, we did like 4/10 of a mile. Today, we're at 7/10 of a mile. But we made Peppy kind of poop out. The thing with Peppy is, my dad doesn't like walking her on a leash. So if he's going to my grandma's house, which is right next door, he never put her or Holly on a leash. So she has no idea how to walk on a leash. So I've basically been hopping back and forth over the leash, trying not to land on it and send her flying or trip over it myself or get tied up in a knot or whatever. So I'm going to be sore again today. And yeah. Hopefully she's a bit more tired than before, and hopefully she doesn't just sit here and pant the whole time. But like I said, it's a nervous habit, so she probably will. But maybe if we do this enough, we'll burn some of that excess energy out of there, and it won't just be pent up to come out and panting all the time. Tomorrow starts dog sitting phase 1, I guess. Tomorrow my aunt and uncle are going out of town, and I will get their corgi. And I'll still have to go over there to their house every day to feed the cats and everything. But the corgi is going to be staying with us. And I don't have any idea how that's going to go. But I am optimistic because she's an old people dog. So she is very used to going to bed at like 8 o'clock. And she can sleep in pretty decently. So I'm going to bring her crate over and have that in my office. So when she's ready for bed, I'll stick her in the crate, and I'll probably stay up in that room and do some writing. My 3 will be in there, and they'll be quiet because they're quiet at bedtime. Taz just likes to show off for the camera, I think. Yeah. I don't know what his deal is. He's getting really obnoxious with barking and fidgeting in the videos and whatnot. So right now, possibly wants more water. So I'm going to worry about that, I guess. Okay. I can't say that he's satisfied. He'll probably pester me more because I cut him off again. But he had a bunch of water, so don't think he didn't. And there's still some in the little collapsible water dish on the dashboard that he keeps eyeballing. But I figure when he gets fussy here in a few minutes, we'll get that one back out. Stop! Damn it. Get in the back seat. Yeah, I don't think Peppy's impressed with this little sitting in the car business. Although that's probably partly her preferred option because it's less work. But yeah, she got to work a little bit today. It's good for her, so I'll probably tire her out for sure. Damn it, quit! In the back! Stop. You sit. Sit. He can listen. He just doesn't like to very much. Nah, get back there. Hey, your tantrums are enough. That's enough. No more tantrums. Quit it. Yeah. So I watched this Nordic Light reading this morning. There's another one that I felt drawn to all of the piles again. And especially the first 2, but it's like the last one, there's still something to that too. And it's like the last one, It was like, I feel like that was my entire life up till the past, like, recent span of time, on this healing journey endeavor thing. You just give him the water. Maybe he'll leave me alone a little bit. But she was talking about, the reading was something about who are your spirit guides and what message do they have for you or something like that. And for the third one, gross. I was talking about how she felt like she was having a really hard time connecting with the guides and all that stuff. And it was like there was a blockage of some sort. It's like the first thing, honestly, that it made me think about was, okay. Yeah. So when I was 8, I got to that point that I've talked on here a lot about, where I felt like God hated me. And so I decided if God hated me, then I hated God. And when I was about 12, like, bad idea, but I basically invited in the devil, whatever the devil was or whatever, and, based on the Christian upbringing that I had very specific idea of what I thought that was, but at the time I didn't care because I thought God hated me, and therefore that was, where I was acting from, living from that space. And I feel like I've always been... Stop! Sit your ass down. Sit! That's not a sit. Sit! Stay. I feel like I've always been pretty open. Like, I've talked about being an open channel, and it's like I feel like that's always been the case, but I didn't know what was going on when I was younger, didn't know that there was, didn't know what boundaries were, let alone or the importance of having them. Sit. And yeah. So what I feel like okay. Since I've been like unraveling the chaos of my life in the past recent years, I have started to pick up on the fact that like I pick up on messages, like spoken messages, maybe something I see. Yeah, it can even be something you see on a billboard as you're driving past. It's just whatever. It's like if there was something I was thinking about, something related to that would somehow come up, and it was almost like a response to it. And I've talked about that on here before too, about how, okay, like when I first figured out who my twin flame was and was listening to his music nonstop, and then had that moment where it was like, I woke up one morning, it's like, this really feels obsessive and that makes me uncomfortable. And so then I like go on to YouTube, and immediately this White Feather Tarot reading pops up, and it's like, I'm supposed to watch that. There's a message in that one for me. And then I watched it, and one of the things she said was, you're worried this feels obsessive, but your guides are saying it's not, and it has to be this way right now. It's like, that felt like an immediate response. That was specifically an answer to this thought that I just had, right? And it's like this, woman that I think she's overseas somewhere, and we have no connection in the physical world, and yet she's doing this tarot reading and specifically addresses this thought that I just had. And it's like, it didn't even leave my mouth, it just was a thought in my head. And it's like, well, that was obviously for me, because that was, too perfectly timed, right? And then I watched the White Rose guidance reading after that, and she pulled a card that said specifically, listen to my music. And and she's like, that feels oddly specific. It's just like, doesn't it though? It's like two things that like immediately came in response to this thought I had about worrying that something was feeling obsessive, and like I wasn't comfortable going down that route because it felt obsessive and I didn't like that idea. And then it's like these two things are literally dropped right in front of me, like, pick me, and then they have a message that specifically speaks to that point. So I feel like I've always been kind of open like that. Did you just belch in my ear? This dog. No couth. And he's still not happy that he didn't get to finish it off. There's still half a container of water in there. But yeah, it's like I've always kind of done that. Like when I first really was moving in on the idea of I'm supposed to be writing. Sit. Back in the good girl Christian days, I was walking around the Family Christian store, and this woman randomly walks over to me and hands me like this little coupon for like a stack of things. I had some journals and stuff that I was picking up, and she hands me like this coupon and says something to the effect of God's proud of you and wants you to know you're on the right path. It's like, okay. It's like, well, that's kind of cool because, I was getting into the whole writing thing, and then it felt like a very legitimate confirmation. And I'd say that's perfectly acceptable to consider that as confirmation on that end. I'm not so sure this isn't just a boredom habit as much as anything, to be honest. Because this is getting kind of annoying. He's like, hey, I don't have your attention. How can I get your attention? But anyway, so going back to the reading from this morning, it's like I had a point in time where after I invited in the devil, the demons, whatever you will, it's like that stuff didn't go away. It was always kind of there, but it's like intangibly there. Like I could know something was going on and get this insight for things, but then at the same time there was a disconnect from it. So when I invited in the darkness, it felt like, everything. This is so much slurping. Okay, that's enough. This was full. So he has been drinking a lot. So he's just trying to drive me nuts. But yeah, it's like everything just became denser and darker, and like the messages that started coming through were more typically negatively skewed. And stop! You are getting on my nerves, dude. Get in the back seat and shut up. Lay down. No, you're not coming up here. Keeps us up. I'm gonna have to figure something else out. I'm gonna make it a habit of sitting outside the car to do a video. But today it's cold, so I don't want to do that. So stop it. It's like I feel like before the shit with my cousin where he was, spreading rumors about me at school and coloring my whole life with the shit brush, like before then, I always felt like I was kind of one of those people that just like other people didn't like. For whatever reason, they just didn't like me, right? And then the deal with my cousin was it felt like easy target kind of a thing, and that was a lot of like the bullying stuff that came up along the way. Was it felt like I was an easy target, and then that was the stuff that led me to that space of, well, okay, if God doesn't like me, then I don't like God. And it started making things a lot darker, and the messages that were coming through, there was a lot stronger push on the suicidal ideation, and the snuffing of the light, if you will. It's like my chronic state was one of apathy. Will you quit licking that? Oh my God, dog! You are driving me nuts. Yeah, but like apathy was basically my chronic state, right? And so when she's talking about this block in the reading, it's like I feel like that was when I invited all that stuff in, it just like went really heavy and like really dense, and I'm trying to clear this dense shit and it's just not working, and I just kind of get taken over by the densities around me, right? And she I think the big thing she said was there was something about like that she pulled this card, it was like false god or something, and she said she was thinking false guides, and it was like that lines right up with what would have been happening at that point in time for me, right? Because I invited in this, negative, I invited in the negativity, essentially. And so, I mean, you invite it in, then it's going to come in and try to squash you, basically. And here's Peppy. And it's kind of chilly, so I'm going to start this car. Or not. Damn car. Okay. I got it on the next try as soon as I paused it. It was not agreeable there for a minute. You gonna sit on me again? Not in my water cup. Here. Ooh, we gotta fix that toenail. But yeah, it's like I feel like that was basically where I was through the time up until I got, the divorce was kind of the point of which there was a bit of a release. And I've talked on here many times about how I always knew that was something that I was going to have to experience in my life because the tendency is to believe that, straight up with religious conditioning, divorce is the worst thing in the world and you want to avoid that at all possible costs. It's like, just because you make a bad decision, once you realize it was a bad decision and you need out of that situation, that doesn't mean everything's over. That doesn't mean life doesn't go on any further. And that, I think, was essentially the point of me going through that and having that experience personally. Because, I think I've always kind of wanted to be an example of things working out. But yet here I am at 41, just finally starting to make sense of things. It's taken a long time, and I complicated that when I invited the darkness in, and got completely consumed by that, and have tried to navigate through that whole thing. But it's like I was thinking about this last night. I spent some time writing, and I was writing about how I remember I grew up in the church hearing the little Sunday school songs, and I was writing something about the one that says, yes, Jesus loves me, the Bible tells me so, or something. And like I've talked about when I had that moment where I thought I was like losing my mind in undergrad, and I had like all those voices that were like yelling in my ears and all that stuff. How I like was hiding out in the bathroom with my hands over my ears and rocking back and forth. And that was the one that I was singing. That was the one that came to me and that stayed with me and all that stuff. And that was how I was trying to make the voices go away. And yeah. So I was writing about that little moment, and then how I remembered hearing that point a lot in those early years when I, was first going to the first church we went to. And then I was thinking about how, my life showed me anything but that, right? And, I was thinking to the points in high school, all the times I've heard my mom say, you're my daughter, so I always have to love you, but I don't like you very much. It's like, every time she said it, it's like the fact that you had to say any of that suggests that you don't even love me. So don't try to throw that at me, right? And I'm trying to think how a lot of it's stuff that I'm writing. Then there's also the stuff that I'm watching, and like, the tarot readings or whatever comes up. Like I said, you can get messages anywhere if you are open to receiving them. They will come to you. And yeah, so this, hi. She's just here like, what are we doing? And why? But it's like there's just like all these layers of things that I'm kind of combing through and trying to make sense of what I'm doing, what I'm supposed to be writing about, where I'm going with any of this, right? And, I talked about how Ziva was kind of I had to face that fear of something happening to her before I was able to like really sit with some ideas for the writing process as well. Ooh, excuse me, I got the hiccups. Or I had 2 anyway. Hopefully there's no more. But I think it was something I was watching last night, pertaining to something with twin flame things. Those are like the things I kind of listen to them while I'm doing other things, so I'm not completely consumed by what's going on in them. But sometimes like a big point will come up, and it's like I have to say something about that. So half the time, like the stuff, like the connections that I'm making will even come from things that came to mind while I was watching a video, so I commented on it, and then it's like this whole thing, and it's like, oh, that's another point I need to write down, because it's basically like journaling, except for where potentially other people can find it anyway. But it goes back to that point, how I mentioned that back in like October, I had that dream that made me realize that I'm the runner. There's the whole idea of the runner and the chaser in twin flame connections. And I just kind of went along with the idea that because I identify as female, that aligned me more specifically with what is commonly seen as the feminine role on the journey. And it's like that whole runner piece is like, oh, I'm That's me. And it's like, not because I'm running from anything this actual person has ever said or done to me, but it's because I'm running from a deeper aspect of myself that's been terrifying to consider. Like, because I've always had this idea that I was meant for something big in my life, and you know, when I was raised to play small, that doesn't really line up with what I felt like I was, or what I have felt that I'm here to do, right? And, you know, I've talked about that live stream that he did that I happened to comment on, and he responded, and I like freaked out because it was like I'd suddenly been spotted, you know. And it's like, I watched another tarot reading, I think ESO, she was talking about, or Kino, talking about how you can shrink your energy to hide it from others at times. It's like, I feel like that's been my whole life, is when I start trying to be authentically me and then it's not been received well, then I like panic and go into hiding, you know. And then it's like, well, I don't want anybody to see anything of me, and you know, because I don't want the attention that comes, because there for a long time, the attention that kept finding me was negative. It's like, that's not cool. I don't like that. But that also lines up with, if I am on this path that is going to be as big as I've had hints of, or had glimpses of, basically, then it would make sense that I would need to go through some of this stuff to deal with it at a time when I'm okay with shrinking my energy. Because one of these days, if I get to that point, that's not going to be an option anymore. And then it's going to have to be fully embrace who I am to all levels of it. And what does that mean? What does that look like? Hip hip. Yeah. I was sitting there eating earlier, and my mom was at the table next to me. And of course, it was right after I watched that Nordic Light reading where she was talking about energies. Yeah, basically, you know, the denser energies, the people that come along that try to block you from where you're supposed to go to. It's like, well, I definitely feel like that's hugely been my parents, right? And then I was in there with them, and I was just kind of listening to what was going on. Occasionally I would say something, but mainly it was just listening and watching. And my mom starts in, first thing is she's looking for a new computer because hers is getting ready to die, she says. And so she found one that she was thinking about, had my dad look at it, and then started in on this path of, she had this email up with this company that she ordered. Okay, she ordered a bunch of sweats for everybody for Christmas that are supposed to be like for, it's basically the purpose of a weighted blanket, right? And so she got her and my dad a set, me a set, my brother a set, his wife a set, and Gracie a set. And it goes back to that whole deal with like at Christmas where I said that I was really dreading Christmas because the thing that always happens is you're not going to get stuff that you asked for or had any interest in. It was stuff she thought you should like and should be grateful for. So then she can get her feelings hurt if you don't want something or whatever. And I wasn't huge on them. Like, I wasn't dying for another sweatsuit. I don't wear sweats that often. Usually if I do, it's just because I got cold at home and decided to add on more layers. And yeah. But that's not a frequent thing per se. Like, this is basically what I have on now. I have, see, a long sleeve t-shirt, a short sleeve t-shirt, and my hoodie. And then I have 2 pairs of leggings, one fleece lined, the other not fleece lined, and then a pair of shorts over the top. Usually I will stay in that until I'm ready to get ready for bed, and then it's just, I have like bike shorts and a t-shirt I wear. And I mean, it's nothing complicated, it's nothing fancy. Sometimes if I take a shower in the evening, then I will put my pajamas on at that point. Then I would wear sweats. But it's 2:22. Yeah. But like, that's not something I do a whole lot of per se. So I mean, I have 2 pairs of sweatpants anyway. Honestly, that's plenty. Like, I think I wore them like 3 times maybe last year. I tried wearing sweatpants when I went to skate one day and found out that's a bad idea. Well, actually, I walked the dogs before I went to skate in it. And it's like, they have pockets, but they're not deep enough to hold on to my phone. So I dropped my phone in the parking lot, and that was when I cracked the screen all over the place. That was from walking the dogs. But it made me realize that there was no way I could roller skate in sweatpants because I need more of a pocket than those had. So yeah. But anyway, she's pissed because my brother and his family, she says supposedly she doesn't think they even bothered to try them on. She thinks they just didn't like them. And it's like, well, maybe, but that takes us back to that point of, were you really looking to find something that anybody else would enjoy, or was it specifically you were out to prove that you could pick things that people would like so you could get that pat on the back that you never got from your father? And basically it's that. So she's all pissed off because she's trying to send this stuff back to this company, and the company is being real sketchy about not wanting it back. And she's like, well, this is like $200 worth of sweats. She's like, I'm not gonna not get my money back on them. It's like, well, if they don't want to give you your money back on them, I guess you might we'll just find out. You know, but that's like a whole ordeal. But then she was sitting there and she said, or she was talking to my dad about how, you know, she's not going to get them anything else for anything anymore. She'll get something for Gracie, but my brother and his wife they're probably cut off. And it's like, I feel like she could have made that decision years ago and they would have been okay with it, to be honest, because it's always that way. Like, she never asks, she just does what she thinks because she's trying to prove that she can pick things well, and then get her feelings hurt if somebody doesn't like it or something. It's like, you know, it's like, I didn't want any part of Christmas because of that purpose. It's like, you know, I honestly didn't necessarily, like, I wasn't dying for sweats. You know, I just spent that time talking about how I really didn't need another pair of sweats. But it kind of seemed, on the one hand, like a little more trouble than it's worth than to say, hey, no, I don't want this. I want the money out of it or whatever. The vibration plate for working out, that one, I said, I feel like it's a better idea in theory than in practice. I said, it sounds like something that would be fun to try a time or two. I said, but I feel like what's going to happen is you try it a few times and then it just becomes another thing that sits there collecting other stuff on top of it, you know, that never gets used. It's like, or that gets buried under stuff to the point where it can't be used because then you have to dig it out to get it to begin with, right? So she said on that, I told her at that time, I said I would rather have the money to use it for Ziva's vet appointment. And so she gave me money out of it and decided, well, maybe she'd keep it because she thought it looked fun. Okay. You could have just gotten yourself one. You know, that would have been completely acceptable rather than calling it Christmas for somebody else and just because I'm conveniently in the house and hey, you can use it. It's like, whatever. You know, but I got Ziva to the vet and got everything handled for her annual appointment and her shots and all that fun stuff. And then they kept the vibration plate. And for for a few weeks it stayed right there where I had put it after I unwrapped it. And the other day my dad got it out so they could try it, right? And she had me come in and try it. And I got a fun little video of Taz getting on it and trying it because as I was standing on it, he'd come over and like stand on it with me and like he was all sorts of excited about it. And it was kind of funny on that end. That was the only time it's been used. You know, and the only reason I used it that time was because she said, hey, come try this out. It's like, okay. So I did. But it's like, and then she said, do you think you'll use it? It's like, I'm gonna go with my original statement. It sounds good in theory, better than practice. In practice, it's just going to be there in the way collecting shit. And it has, it was in front of this little counter area we have by the garage door when we were trying it. And then it ended up by some of the boxes that I've been going through in the living room to purge stuff from. So, and it's just hanging out there and it has not moved since. And she said she's thought about trying it again. It's like, but that's the thing. It's more effort than it is worth the effort to do it. And it's like, you know, so, you know, but she told my dad that I love my sweats. It's like, I don't remember saying that I loved them. I remember wearing them like 3 times because when I took the sweatshirt off, because I put the sweatshirt on, she wanted me to try it on, so I took the one off that I had on, and then it was more trouble than it was worth to switch back because I had a different one on, so I just left it on. And then, you know, then when I did take it off and got ready for bed, it went on the thing that I have towels on behind my bathroom door. So it was more convenience because it was there, you know, I just put it back on. It wasn't that I was going out of my way because I was just dying for this thing. It was there, you know, and that's usually how it goes. And then I got something on it and had to wash it. So then it was in the laundry. Now it's in the clean laundry in my room. But it's not a priority again. So it's like, loved it? I got it. It's okay. But at the end of the day, stop. At the end of the day, I didn't need another sweatsuit. I didn't really want one. And it would have been perfectly okay to not have more shit to move around. But here we are. You know, and at that point, or at this point, that's basically how I feel with a lot of things, is shit that I have to go through to purge more stuff. Stop. What is your deal? You know, but I feel like that's that whole point. Apparently this dude only drinks in the car. At least that is what he would have you believe. It is now basically empty, so and yes, there's always water accessible everywhere. We have like 3 bowls in the kitchen because we had 5 dogs for a while. Now we have 4, but there's 3 in the kitchen. There's 1 in my bedroom that has one of those jugs on it, and there's another one of those I gotta find. There's another one for the back porch, but I brought it in because it needs washed. It's got like some algae situation going on, but it was frozen there for a while, so it just came in and hasn't made it back out yet. But there are options. So he's not as dehydrated as he thinks he is. No. But yeah, it's like that whole point. It's like just the fact that she told my dad that I love mine. It's like, I've never said that though. It's like, that's her assumption just because I've worn it. And it's like, that's what she goes for. Because I've worn it, stop, outside of her pushing me to try it on or whatever, then she can pat herself on the back and she did something good and worthwhile and got me something that I'll use. It's like, but I didn't need it, and it's in the way. It's just more stuff to move. And I've been trying to purge shit. Like on at least 3 or 4 occasions, we have burned like a good 7 to 20 boxes of shit that I, was going through, and not all my shit. A lot of it was my shit. Just stuff that, because I don't know how many times I heard from like my family that, well, you're supposed to save up to like 7 years of like tax information and all this stuff. It's like, this sounds like just more shit they want you to believe, so you are forever obligated to feeling like you're being taken over by all the junk in the space. And because if you can't get around all the junk in your space, then you won't be able to have the capacity to do the energetic clearing work. But if you are able to, start clearing some of that out, then you can kind of get to know yourself better, and hone in on what you want for like future things. Okay, I had this paperwork that my mom was telling me I really needed to keep that. It's like, there's no reason for me to keep that. It was my ex's psych eval results. It's like, I don't want anything to do with that dude again. I want him out of my space and to be happily cleared of him forevermore. So what it feels like is, if I hang on to this thing just because it talks about his narcissism and whatnot, then all that does is leave the door open for his energy to get back in, because I'm hanging on to something that had to do with him. It's like, I don't want any part of that. It's like, I was talking to my friend about it. I was like, remember I said I allowed myself to get completely screwed over in that disconnection just to disconnect quicker so I could get away from it and start having my own life and choosing for myself again, and choosing to do things not in spite of him as it had been before, but because I want to do stuff. And I don't want any part of that coming back in. And of course she agreed with me on that, but like the one of few friends that I have that I still talk to at all, and I don't talk to her hardly at all either. She actually knew my ex though, because we met in Alabama, and because I didn't know anybody else in Alabama, when we had to rush off to come up to Indiana for custody shit that was going on, and, you know, stuff with baby mama drama and my ex's kid, we didn't have anyone to talk to about taking care of all of our animals and stuff at home. So basically we bonded over Odin. Odin was my bearded dragon, the male that my ex was trying to breed other dragons with, and there were babies at one point, and she got to keep a baby at one point, and partly because what we needed her to take care of was the eggs we had waiting to hatch. So it was really convenient when she had, you know, she was a vet tech at the exotic animal vet that we had to take Odin to for something, or I had to take him to, and we ended up bonding over that. And then she was all excited because she wanted a bearded dragon, and since, hey, there were gonna be babies, she was all about it. So it worked out, and it was fine. But yeah, now I am out of the bearded dragons altogether. I have no more reptiles, and I'm kind of over that phase, honestly. Although it's kind of funny because I found the picture. I was going through my zoo pictures a while back, and I found some that I had taken on a trip that my the ex-husband, and I had gone to the zoo. Like, we went like 2 or 3 times, and I had pictures from all of them. Like, I was going through pictures because my bear won, and it's like, wait a second, I've taken a lot of pictures at the zoo. And so I was going back through like these other trips that I'd forgotten all about, and then, you know, remembered stuff that I'd forgotten about. You know, like I got a really cute picture of a koala in a tree too. That was from the zoo. And I remember when I was in high school, my computer techie friend and the guy that I was dating, and then another friend that was also kind of into the techie stuff. You know, we all hung out in the library together, except for my ex. We made a trip to the zoo at one point, and it's like, why do I remember being so close to the emus? And then I saw the pictures. It's like, oh yeah, it's because the freaking dinosaurs were like right there. You know, there was like this little chain that blocked them off, and I remember we were standing there talking about something. I don't even remember what. And it's like toward the end of my high school years, and while we're standing there, I was talking here, and then all at once this emu like raises its head up right next to me. Cool, that was obnoxious. Taz! Well, dude here saw people coming up around the corner before I did, so like that was like literally just 3 minutes of this. We weren't done with them yet. Taz! They came up from around the little corner. I didn't see them over there at all, and because of where we're at, he saw them before I did. Normally I try to, before I knew this was going to be a problem today, you know, I try to park where I'm going to see what's coming more, so I can try to avoid that. And lately it was a good idea to hide over here, but then they snuck up on us, and there we went. Anyway, but yeah, like there was this like emu that just like raised its head up right next to me. It was like freaking Jurassic Park, and it was like terrifying. They are not that close anymore. They are down in this little, I don't know, you can walk over it. But yeah, you can't get that close anymore. I never really needed to be that close to him, because that was a pretty terrifying experience, and all it did was raise its head right next to me. I was like, whoo. But like I forgot all about that, and like it was 2008, which was a few years later. They had a better fence around it, but it still, I mean, they were still a lot closer than I cared to be to them, I think. They're not as close now. So yeah. Why was I even talking about that? Thanks, Taz. He's on alert. He ain't gonna quit. Oh, the zoo pictures. Yeah. Oh, the bearded dragon. Yeah, 2008 was one of the trips that I got a picture of a bearded dragon there, and I said, these guys are awesome, and I will have one day. And then I ended up with my ex, and I wanted one, and he wanted to breed them. It's like, I don't want to do that. And yet then it becomes my project anyway. It's like, no. One of my biggest regrets in that last year that I was there was, okay, there was the clutch that we kept and gave, the friend that did the pet sitting for us. She got first pick of the bunch. And that was all fine and dandy. And then the dragon laid eggs again, because apparently they only have to mate once, and they can have 4 clutches off the same mating in 1 year. It's like, I don't need that kind of drama. One of my biggest regrets was that I didn't take all of those eggs and put them in the freezer while my ex was at work one day, and then put them back in the incubator after they'd been in there all day. So then, nothing happens with them. Wonder what happened. But yeah, it was what it was. The next one's like, this is on you. I don't want this responsibility. I didn't want to take that on to begin with. At one point we had I want to say 6 big dragons and then a bunch of little babies. It's like, no, that's not fun at all. But when I had Odin and Fury were the 2 that came with me when I left Alabama, because they were kind of the coolest. And after he gave up on the breeding endeavor, he wanted to get rid of Odin, and I wouldn't let him because I liked Odin. So Odin and Fury, I would take those 2. Well, I would take all of them at some point, but those 2 were my favorite 2 to take out and about. Took Odin to PetSmart with me one day and had him hanging out on my shoulder. It was actually after that vet trip. I had to go there and get crickets for all of them, and he just went along for the ride and was hanging out on my shoulder as I was walking around the store. That freaks people out. Just having a random reptile on your shoulder. Remember one lady turned the corner and looked at me and was like, ew! It's like, well, that's not very nice. Yeah. Anyway. So why was I there? I don't remember. That whole dog barking drama. Didn't need that in my life. Yeah, okay, so tomorrow I get to hang out with the corgi, and I think that's going to be 10 days. And there's a little bit of an overlap. My brother and his wife his family are going on their cruise 13th or 14th. And they're going to be gone for I think they expect to be back by the 25th. So 11, 12 days ish with their 2. It's like, oh man, their 2. We've never brought them over to the house. I'm not sure how Taz would do, honestly. You saw that little kerfluffle, or half of the kerfluffle a little bit ago. I don't know that I want to take on a doodle and a basset hound on top of that. The doodle's super sweet, but she's really jumpy because they moved right after they got her, and she was really young, and then the socialization kind of went on pause, because the bigger issue was they went from having a fenced yard to not having a fenced yard. So at first I was taking Gidget and Ziva over there all the time, so she got used to them. But since they don't have a fence now, it's like, I can't do that there. It's like, ugh. I mean, I could take mine, but I don't want to try to put theirs in the backyard and contend with mine not being able to go right out too, because they're used to going out in the backyard, and that one doesn't have a fence. I don't know how I'm gonna do all of this, but The Corgi will at least be easy. She's been around before. I'm going to have to watch Dingus over here because, well, you've seen him. My problem child. But, you know, the other two, they're not going to, what I usually end up doing is when I get up at like 3:30 or whenever to pee and to feed these guys, then I will go over there and potty them so I can, you know, they can be good until whenever I'm good and ready to get up and moving for the day. And the last time I prioritized taking them on a big walk. Of course, now every time I go over there and go to the bathroom at their house, they think that means we're getting ready to go on a walk. They start looking at the leashes like, come on, let's do it. It's like, that would literally happen like 3 days, and now it's a habit. Yeah. But, you know, so I got these 4, and I think I'll be able to add a Corgi in on walking. It will not be easy. It might not be real fun. I might have to muzzle Taz. I don't know. If he can't behave himself, I probably won't be able to do a video in the car like I have been on that end. But I'll figure it out. Yeah. I started writing last night, you know, like focused effort writing kind of things. Oh, the one deal where I was writing about the love thing, and then I kind of detoured and was thinking about like the twin flame aspect of this whole thing, and how that ends up being a big motivational piece for the healing work from the other stuff, the lifetime of the other drama. And then, as I was like in the middle of writing that, I looked at the clock and it was 11:11. It's like, because of course it is. That's how it works. Yeah. But see, I think like right now, everything that's happening, because I've gotten those messages, mind you, that everything that's going on now has a specific purpose to it. And it's up to me to find the purpose, right? Or to navigate. It doesn't matter if I make sense of the purpose or not. If it at least gets me closer to where I'm meant to be going, then it served its purpose. And so Ziva's deal, her little health issue the other day, served to kind of give me a new way of thinking about the writing project, right? And then last night, you know, I was kind of thinking, it's like, okay, so I don't think that's, like, I think that's a big part of the thing. Like, if I start getting lost in the negativity of the old stuff, there's, hey, this twin flame thing that's literally been pulling me along for the ride on this healing journey, you know, and also still the fact where if I do get stuck in one of those moments, I could probably shift it easily by remembering like a highlight of the time with the dogs in that span of time, you know, because we have lots of good memories, even though we're kind of all about being difficult now. Look how cute they are. She's back there using them as a pillow. Now, don't get carried away. She's only because they're that close right now. Taz is all about cuddles with the other dogs. If Ziva's laying on the couch, he will go up next to her and lay down practically on top of her. And they'll be okay just like snuggled in together. But they won't go out of their way to cuddle with him, so I think that's probably part of his problem. He doesn't get enough cuddles because they don't cuddle back. But Gidget and Taz now are the only two that follow me into the bathroom while I'm getting ready for bed. And for a while it was just Gidget, but Taz is back. And if they are close enough in the bathroom, she will do that in there too, you know, so she won't own up to it very easily, very readily, but, You can catch her. She just, whatever. Yeah. But then, I don't know. The next few weeks are going to be kind of chaotic. Oh, and last night my mom said she's got my grandma on board for, that she's all about getting new carpet and painting. And then she's like, well, I need to find somebody to paint. It's like, I thought you had somebody to paint. I thought they were, I don't know if they were waiting on me to volunteer my painting ability or what. But last night she just makes this comment of, we need somebody to paint. It's like, I thought you had somebody. And she said, no. And she's like, well, it's like, I am capable of painting. If you need somebody to do it, I can handle it. But I'm not just going to throw all my time and energy back into all the family drama again. I'm not doing that. Will not. And, let's go back to that tarot reading with the dark energies that are surrounding you and trying to block things. Yeah. That's my whole, yep. But I know just putting it out there that I can do it in theory, they're going to use that to try to rope me back in. I can tell you that for sure. And I think the biggest thing is I will have my headphones. Don't think I won't. I will not go over there without my headphones. And the ones that I have now are I forget what they're called. Some kind of conduction headphones. And so you can still hear what's going on around the headphones. But I can also turn them up so I don't hear what's going on as much. I actually really like them because I can hear enough of what's going on around me to know if I need to hear less of it or not. Yeah. But last night, as I was working on the writing stuff, I got, actually after I was done with writing at my computer, I went back we got ready for bed, and then I went and was writing, I was journaling in bed, and then I got to a point where I wanted to write some more, so I sat down, I was already sitting. I was sitting on my bed. Excuse me. I started navigating a timeline. It's like, this is what I need to do. I need to compile the timeline of things that happened and when they happened, and then kind of pull in the stories as I'm weaving it from that point. But it's like telling it's a weird dynamic trying to talk enough about the past to get the point in there and to show where the difficulties have come up and the thing that was still pulling me on this path to keep moving me forward, that twin flame element. And also the dogs are the part with keeping me in the present. So it's like, it's kind of like a dance, right? I'm kind of dancing through different parts of the journey to weave the story together to tell the story that I'm trying to tell, that I'm meant to tell, and, sharing the different layers of it, and I've talked about how the twin flame stuff, I've realized that it's literally always been there in my life, and like things, okay, like going back to when I was 4 and felt like I had that sort of check-in that I feel was before he incarnated, and ages-wise, that seems like it should line up. Now, I don't know for a fact how old he is specifically, but from what I have piece together, I'm pretty sure we're looking at right at around that time frame. Because that was something I remember. I've always gone back to this song and just being completely consumed by the song that I heard when I was 4. And when I started going through like the twin flame stuff, like as I've, I was in high school when I put his particular hairstyle out there as I really like this. And, and I remember being so afraid of people thinking I was shallow or whatever, and I thought it was shallow to want to be attracted to somebody that you want to be with, right? And it's like, that's not. I mean, you're going to spend potentially a lot of time of your life looking at them. I would think you should want to look at them, right? And yeah, but it's like because I think it goes to that conditioning piece. Because of the conditioning, I thought that was a shallow thing and served no purpose, so it was not something that I should worry about. But at the same time, that first boyfriend in high school, it's like, he had the brown hair and the brown eyes, but it's like, I just always knew, it's like, he's not the one. And, that piece where I literally, if I would have listened to myself and followed the little details that I did know, like I always known brown hair, brown eyes, right? But I started listening to like the people, okay, like with the high school boyfriend, when I knew he wasn't it, and we broke up 3 times because I was trying to commit to it, but then the last time we got back together was because his sister was in my section, and I knew she was going to make my life a living hell if, I was forever the one who broke her big brother's heart. And so the last 2 years we were together, I didn't try to break up with him at all in there. It's like I knew we weren't going to be together forever, which is why I tried to break it up with him to begin with. But it's like, because I let other people kind of manipulate my boundaries, I stopped listening to myself. And because I stopped listening to myself, I ended up down this, dark path that eventually led me to my ex-husband. And yeah. But it's like, if at any point I had been encouraged to follow what I know, or at least not so adamantly discouraged from it, it's like, I never would have gotten in any of those other relationships, or like had some of the experiences that I had that I would be okay if I hadn't had. It's like, because I would have been so set on this one path. But since I got talked out of it, and partly allowed myself to be talked out of it, partly talked myself out of it, it's like all these layers. And it's literally, how do you write this thing where you're pulling in all these different layers and literally weaving this very complicated thing with all these, different timelines, viewpoints, and, because I've shifted throughout this whole journey. It's like okay, who I was in high school and in that first relationship, who I was in the second relationship, and who I was in the third relationship, and who I was immediately after that one. It's like, those are all different people. Like, all the things that got me into any of those situations, is like, I was different people in all those experiences, just because of like everything that went into getting me there, and part of it was I needed to believe, like the second boyfriend that I now, I had to believe that he was the one I was supposed to be with, because it forced me to face a bunch of things in myself that I wouldn't have had the opportunity to confront otherwise, but also, it took me to that point of kind of losing myself to the extent that I got into the relationship with my ex-husband, and that dude was a walking red flag. That never would have happened had I not just completely allowed myself to believe the worst of myself as everything started falling apart. And that's kind of the big purpose of, a big part of my life was I wanted to understand how people get into those situations and feel so stuck that they can't get out of them. So the only way to do that is to go through that, and then it's like from living that experience and realizing that, oh, well, that took a whole lot of stuff that was not happy things, but it taught me a lot, and then realizing all the conditioning that went into keeping me stuck there, this idea that divorce is bad and should be avoided at all possible costs. But yet, you are not forever bound to a bad decision just because you spent a lot of time making it. Mistakes are mistakes, that's part of the soul learning growth process too. So if you find yourself stuck, it is okay to get out of that. And not only is it okay to get out of that, but if you're not meant to be there, the universe will fully support you in moving in the direction you're supposed to be in. And life doesn't end just because you made a mistake and got stuck somewhere for a long time, or maybe not a long time. However stuck you get there, because it's like that relationship. Okay, so it was, I think we first went out in like March of 2012. Got married in November 2012. Yeah, it was a little rush, but if you're running from yourself, that's partly how that happens. And I was definitely running from myself. So then we got married in November 2012. And in March was when things started falling apart all over the place. And divorce. Okay, I left for good in March. Hey, there again. March 2019. So, what's that? 7 years there. And then divorce was finalized in July 30th, my divorce anniversary. And that's not where it ended though, because then there was the soul-crushing depression with trying to, with coming to terms with the fact that everything sucked and that had been really difficult, and trying to unravel the pieces of how the fuck did I get there to begin with. Going back to that family piece, and then how that weaves into it more deeply. It's like, this is complicated shit, y'all. It's like, no wonder it has not been easy doing the writing stuff that I have known I wanted to do. This is what I'm literally here to do, is this writing project. And it's like, it's been out of reach for much of my life because there's been so much that I had to get through before I could get there to the point, or to this project that I'm meant to write, and that goes back to so it was right after I turned 40. So 2023. What are you licking? Oh, your foot. Okay. Yeah, so July 2023, I turned 40. In August, I was working at the other factory. And when I got my lip ring and my nose rings, I set the intention that I would never again work in a job that asked me to be anything less than 100% who I am. When I did that, it was kind of like, because I set this intention, and then my mom and I watched that Love Again movie, And then I was like, well, maybe I'm ready, right, to think about this direction. And it goes back to those Abraham Hicks videos I was watching all the time. If you're ready to be ready, the universe will line you up with what you need to get you where you're meant to be. And so I got to the point where I was ready to be ready. I don't know that I was even that ready when I first was like, maybe I'm ready to think about this thing, right? And so that was like specific moment of turning love life and career life over to the universe to guide and direct. But obviously that's not the only time that it came up, because I go back to those, the Eric and Leslie Ludy books where when God writes your love story, when God writes your life story, because I thought that sounded kind of cool. And so when I agreed to this writing path that, was always part of my path, but I had to commit to it, to dive into this idea and to give myself over to the idea of doing this writing thing. Universe takes that shit seriously, y'all. So it's like, that was when I was in undergrad. So I don't know if I had heard of them at all before my senior year at Ball State. I want to say junior and senior year, somewhere in that time frame. Senior year was really when I committed to the idea of writing and, this love story, and, basically all I got to do is write this shit. The universe has been leading all the rest of it, and that's literally my entire life. So it's weaving all these things in, good and bad, throughout the entire course of my life into this story, so it's a little overwhelming, but I am committed to it. And, it goes back to exactly that point of why I've felt so disconnected from the love and the career aspects, because they literally go hand in hand. They're right there together. It's like, I can't do one without the other, because this is literally my journey. This is literally, I wanted the universe or God or source or whatever to guide this whole love story aspect of it. But in order to get to the good stuff, you got to navigate through the bad stuff, and then you got to heal from the bad stuff. And that, going back to that point with, even when the second ex and I broke up, it's like the universe had a little marker there. We broke up on the day we had decided, the 4-year anniversary of the day that we decided that we were going to be together and not date anybody else. But we had counted it as, because we both knew that, we were only interested in seeing each other at that point in time. And then because we knew that at the time we had our first date, we just counted the first date as the anniversary. But then the anniversary of the date we had actually had the conversation and decided that and committed to that for that time, that was the 4-year anniversary, and that was the day that we broke up. So it's like, that right there, if I had really registered that at any point previously, that's a good sign of that whole situation is cut off, done, over, not coming back. But I had to believe that it was, because it was basically something to help get me out of the next relationship that was worse. Okay, the second relationship, that wasn't that bad. It just wasn't what was for me, for good for me. And so it was just a whole lot of learning lessons and stuff. And yeah, so when that ended, on the specific day, it's like, that is a good, it's over, it's done, it's not coming back. But I couldn't see it that way until I got to the point of, you know, hitting that first wedding anniversary after the divorce had been finalized, and then like basically turning in on myself again because I started getting really anxious about the possibility of hearing from him again. It's like, I don't want to hear from him again. I want him to be completely gone for good. But because that date didn't have any like anything specific connected to it, then it's like, I need that day to mean something else. So now that day means that okay, that day in 2024, so the 5th wedding anniversary post-divorce, that was where I got to the point where I did my like 100th video. And like, okay, like the first year of videos was one thing in and of itself, but when I got to the 100, you know, because 11/11 was the 1-year anniversary of starting the YouTube thing. So I don't remember how many videos I had at that point in time, but it was like, I feel like I could get 100 in before the end of the year. But then it was like, I feel like that's close enough. I should be able to get 100 in before the end of the month. And then I did. So then like the 5th wedding anniversary post-divorce finally was able to take on a different meaning, because that was the day I did my 100th video. And that shifted a whole lot of stuff in me, you know, on this whole YouTube journey period, because it helped to free me from that, to redefine that date, you know. And obviously I had to think about it for a second, but now it doesn't have to mean that, so the other one can kind of go away. But yeah. Anyway, I'm getting kind of chilly, and this is long enough, I think, so I'm gonna wrap it and call it a day. As always, I appreciate you, and until the next time, see ya.